The chronological Bible reading for March 18th is Deuteronomy chapters 21 through 23. You must purge the evil from yourselves, from you. We see that phrase over and over again in today's reading, and it's very important that the people understand that they have to be set apart. They cannot tolerate evil. And so a lot of these rules are things that you never want to employ, but they're important for people to understand so that they don't go down this dangerous path of defiling themselves, of defiling their land. Chapter 21 begins with what to do if you find somebody who is the victim of a murder. You find a corpse. How do you handle that? People have to wash themselves. There has to be a sacrifice. There has to be a purging of the evil because the blood of the innocent cries out to God day and night. And the people of God cannot just carry on as if nothing ever happened. The taking of an innocent life is a very serious thing, and there will be punishment. So the people of God have to deal with it. And in Israel, it involved taking a young bull down, and the people would wash their hands in a stream that was flowing water. It couldn't be stagnant water. And they would wash their hands and cleanse themselves and say, this wasn't my fault. This wasn't my doing. And yet there will be a sacrifice. We will not allow this event to be swept under the rug. We're not going to pretend like nothing ever happened. We're going to take it very seriously. What about our society today? Is there shedding of innocent blood going on in our society today? Are we sweeping it under the rug? How many victims of child trafficking are crying out for justice? How many innocent children are being slaughtered on the altar of convenience or entertainment? Are the people of God washing their hands of this and crying out for justice and making a deal about it? Should we be? I think it's very important that we, as a people, acknowledge the sin in the land and we cry out to God. We sacrifice from our time and from our comfort, and we come out of the Babylonian system that is perpetuating all of these sins. It's time we turn off our televisions and our internet radios and the music that we listen to, and we come out of the Babylonian system. We don't allow it to influence us. We have to purge the evil from us, from our homes, from our thought life. Some of these provisions given are very difficult. What do you do with a young man who is not listening to his parents? A lot of people who seek to discredit the word of God would look at these passages and say, you serve a God that requires the stoning of a disobedient child? But if you read the text carefully, it's a man who lives at home, who doesn't work, who just gets drunk all of the time. And it's so bad that the parents of this able-bodied man cannot do anything with him. And they go to the town elders and say, I need help with my son. Imagine how desperate parents must be to turn over their own adult son. Do you think that might affect the way parents parent their children? If they knew when this young man becomes a able-bodied man that should be out providing for himself and starting his own family, if he just sits around drinking, consuming, and not giving anything back to society, it will cost him his life. Do you think they'll be more intentional about how they raise this young man? A lot of these provisions are given to dissuade certain behavior, but it's also going to encourage lots of good behavior. And if you think about it, this was probably 3,500 or so years ago. What effect had this teaching had on the Jewish people, on the Hebrew people? Chapter 23 begins with the types of people, the classifications of different people who were forbidden from entering into God's sanctuary. And one of the groups of people there mentioned are Moabites. No Moabite can go into the sanctuary of the Most High God, not even their descendants. And yet, we know the story of Ruth, who was from Moab, and how she married a man named Boaz. And they had a son named Jesse, and Jesse's son, his eighth son, David, became king. And nobody worshiped God quite like David did, and David broke all kinds of rules. He ate the showbread, which was only for priests. He danced in an undignified manner before God, praising the Most High God. And he was the descendant of a Moabite. And God said he has a heart. This David has a heart that is after God's own heart. And of course, David went on to be the greatest king in the history of Israel, father of Solomon, and eventually the father of our Messiah, Jesus Christ. And so we see these rules were to point out certain things, they were to point out certain behavior, but at the same time, they weren't hard and fast rules. God made exceptions for people who had the right heart, the people who wanted to see God's kingdom manifest. The people who, from a very young age, maybe as young as 8 or 10 years old, who were willing to go out and fight the giant who defied the armies of the living God. So as we read these rules that seem archaic and harsh, let's not lose sight of the God who instituted them and why he did so. And let's continue to seek his heart as he continues to seek ours to draw us into closer communion with him for his glory and for the advancement of his kingdom on this earth. God bless you, my friends. Thank you for being on this journey with me through the Word of God in 2024. We'll see you tomorrow.